Kaimere is a distant planet. It is defined by waves of life brought from Earth and set free to evolve independently in this new context. The indigenous life of the planet, swarms of microbes called magic by the people who live there, are what harvest Earth organisms and make copies on Kaimere. As the asteroid which concluded the Mesozoic never struck Kaimere, dinosaurs remain the dominant terrestrial megafauna. As on Earth, big cats of Kaimere are often regarded as top predators of the mammal guild. Small cats and canids, the dog family, round out much of the mid and small mammal carnivore niches. There is, however, one abundant mammal predator related to the cats, but generally found to be closer to mongooses, which has achieved impressive size and ecological success in many habitats of the known world and beyond. The common hyena. The natural history of this animal is shrouded in mystery both on Earth and Kaimere. For a time it was assumed it was harvested from North Africa 250,000 years ago alongside leopards, hippos, and humans. However, related species in Hyrule hint at a much more ancient lineage in Kaimere. The leading theory today is that a now fairly obscure harvest from southern Africa 10 million years ago may have introduced their ancestor. This roughly coincides with the common ancestor of brown, striped, and spotted hyenas. Though they resemble striped hyenas at a glance, this code pattern is likely just the ancestral condition, as it is quite similar to aardvolves, which come from an entirely distinct clade of hyenas. Crocuta has long been proposed as a potential ancestor, though it evolved later in the Miocene, so similarities may be convergent. It's also possible their ancestors were instead harvested from Eurasia 12 million years ago. No fossils have confirmed this, but the hyena analogues, known from Africa and Kaimere at the time, were the Percrocutids, so maybe they came from a different line of more basal Eurasian hyenas and simply evolved a parallel body plan and lifestyle. Some have also proposed Pachycrocuta as the ancestor. While a relative of brown and striped hyenas and 100 to 150 kilos, same as the common hyena, Pachycrocuta appears to have led a much different life, namely as a probably solitary powerhouse scavenger that bullied other animals from their kills. The common hyena is much more similar to spotted hyenas as a more nimble hunter that only rarely scavenges. Pachycrocuta was harvested and lived on the prairie prior to the arrival of housey grass as confirmed by several specimens, but a Hyrulean origin seems much more likely for the common hyena, especially given their greater diversity over on that continent. Some still consider them to be Pachycrocuta, but it is now a minority opinion. All this to say, it is not known what or when exactly the ancestor of the common hyena was introduced to Kaimere. Considering how fragmentary the fossil record is, this isn't terribly surprising. Back in the known world, throughout the Anchored period, a large borophagine called Orcasian, Hound of the Death God, occupied a similar niche as cursorial, bone-crushing specialized predators on Nikar's vast prairies. 500,000 years ago, as housey grass first began to spread and passage between Hyrule and Nikar became possible for the first time in almost 8 million years, the ancestors of common hyenas are first found. However, it would not be until later, when the housey prairie fully replaced much of the established grassland over 200,000 years later, that the common hyena would live up to its name. Though it is often stated in assembly and great library treatises that hyenas directly outcompeted Orcasian, the truth is likely a bit more nuanced. Rather than just direct confrontation, it was probably more the case that the common hyena was used to hunting the prey species now thriving in this new floral status quo. They were quite similar animals, at least superficially. If the hyena had any direct advantage, it may have been in endurance or social complexity. The abundance of pronghorn and elasmarians over the old guard of proceratids, the skelosaurs, and antelope abundant in the old prairies meant speed was now less important than endurance in catching the most common prey. Whatever the reason, common hyenids had entirely replaced Orcocyon by 100,000 years ago. The vital statistics of the common hyena are quite impressive. They average larger than the spotted hyenas of modern Africa, which average around 50 to 60 kilograms. Common hyenas tend to be between 100 and 120 kilos, putting them on par with the cave hyenas of Ice Age here on Earth, and only a bit smaller than Pachycrocuta. Their jaws aren't as powerful as those of Pachycrocuta, but they are still comparable to spotted hyenas and formidable tools in killing prey and processing carcasses. Their success was not limited to the prairies. It seems the open forests of the Titan Gardens were also quite to their liking. Still fairly open spaces to chase down prey, especially along the broad game trails left by sauropods. They also have a population in the highlands of southern Kier. More on these distinctions later in the episode. They may not have ousted Orcocyon directly, but they are a formidable force in the ecological arena. A lone hyena can subsist on lizards, rodents, and even insects in a desert, run down multiple pronghorns in coordinated packs on the prairie, and even assemble in such numbers that they can bring down Oliphant in the forests. They generally lack the speed to reliably catch and kill pronghorn, but are quite adept at hunting horses, which seem to be their favored prey when the opportunity presents itself. There are several equid species on the prairie and are among the more abundant prey species in their size range, so the great success of predators favoring them shouldn't be particularly surprising. By mostly hunting at night, common hyenas avoid the patrolling of the more dominant terror birds and large theropods. It also gives them an edge in closing distance before launching an attack. They have a reputation as scavengers, but this is largely a consequence of doing most of their hunting at night. Many Shu only see them scavenging during the day, or even idly feeding from their own evening kills once the sun rises. They will of course scavenge when the opportunity arises, and the ability to process bone to get marrow means they are simply able to make more use of a carcass than many other predators, and thereby benefit more from scavenging or lingering at a kill, but this is hardly a specialization. The reality is that they are among the most successful predators on the prairie. These hyenas are powerful to be sure, but their great strength is in their intelligence and social complexity. Like spotted hyenas, common hyenas have a reputation for strict matriarchy. The reality is that, like their spotted cousins, their social structure is based on relationship to the dominant female, or matron. As males almost always leave the clan to mate outside, this means most males in a clan are at the bottom of the social class because they are naturally the least related to the dominant female, not on the basis of sex. The same goes for outsider females seeking to join a clan. If the matron's first child is a male and he survives to adulthood, it is not uncommon for him to remain in his natal clan for a while, as no males will dare chase him off. As he grows up to the second-ranking member of the clan, he will naturally buck the misconception of the hierarchy being female-dominant. There are even occasions where, after his mother's passing, he will hold this rank for a time, though it usually isn't for long until another matron takes over or the clan fractures. In either of these instances, he will have to depart and join another clan at the bottom of the pecking order, just like every other male. He will have size from growing up with the best portions going for him, so will likely be chosen as the mate by high-ranking females at the very least. Though their giggling laugh is certainly the most famous of vocalizations, common hyenas communicate with a wide range of sounds. Growls, yips, squeals, groans, grunts, and their also famous whoop makes up a dynamic auditory communication. A surprisingly low rate of reproduction compared to many other carnivorans, often only having between 1 and 3 cubs, has likely contributed to their extreme protective instinct around their young. Even distant relatives will aggressively rally in defense of cubs of the clan. Perhaps confusingly, it is the closest relatives which often pose the greatest threat to cubs. Their own siblings compete severely. The firstborn often has a tremendous advantage getting to nurse, while the others endure their own long births, which can then set the tone of submission and eventual starvation of younger siblings in the litter, especially in subordinate females of the clan. When intruders of other clans and species come, however, there is a united defense. The den is dug so members can easily mount complex defenses, including feints, diversions, and simultaneous assault. The defensive strategies of hyena clans has served as inspiration for many Shu commanders, and many military terms in the Imperial Army reference hyena defense tactics. The offensive capabilities of hyenas are also recognized by the Shu. Common hyenas live a fission-fusion lifestyle, while the clan may be enormous, with over 100 adults in some cases. It is rare for all members to hunt together. Usually they only hunt in smaller troops of 3 to 5. Often these are a consistent group which will develop preferences for prey. This helps the overall troop as game fluctuate, with experienced members taking point on favored prey when that game is in abundance. Only in times of great stress will the whole group work together to bring down particularly large or dangerous game. Also, social hunting is generally the game of dominant group members. Since low-ranking clan members are the last to feed, it should come as no surprise that as many as half the overall clan prefer to hunt alone. Doing so means they get 100% return on investment, whereas they may need to wait for hours before getting scraps while hunting with larger groups. It is still worth remaining with the group for social defenses, but it is not unusual for the largest clan to actually have the most solitary hunters. A famous quirk of theirs is a cooperation with some clans have with other predators from back home, the prairie cockatrice, running vulture, or fosnu. These dromaeosaurs are also socially complex and intelligent predators. It must be said that not all clans and flocks form this bond, and indeed not all individuals within the clan make these connections. But several troops form generational bonds with lineages of cockatrice. The cockatrice has an advantage in endurance, weaponry, and visual acuity, while hyena has greater speed and power. Both have an impeccable sense of smell. Together, they can coordinate an overwhelming assault on a range of game. In times of plenty, these relationships have a lot of success, and in times of strife and famine, they can be invaluable. Both are often more successful together than apart, though it is often a single pair of cockatrice hen and hyena matriarch who have the closest bond. Though this has of course inspired myriad legends of these two species having an inseparable bond, the reality is more an extraordinary circumstance to see a long-term coordination and connection. For the most part, cockatrice and hyena live together and help one another when times are good, but won't stick around through hard times. Hyenas will also cooperate with other predator species. Clans have been documented to welcome in Harkundi terror birds and Nahashet entelodonts. While Harkundi will mimic the laugh and whoop while hunting with hyenas, the mimicry of Nahashet is unparalleled. Another hyena, which came through the portal with Pachycrocuta, is the cursorial hyena Chasmoporthates. They spent 1 million years tripling down on their sprinting adaptations, with the modern species called the Variset giving a cheetah a run for its money. By specializing in the fastest prey, thereby evading competition with common hyenas, the Variset has managed to endure when many other predators on the pre-Housey prairie went extinct. The Harkundi shares their status as a survivor of the old guard, but these terror birds aren't fast enough to catch and kill small pronghorn. There is a third hyena found on the prairie, the aardwolf. The fact that these predators somewhat resemble a diminutive version of both Veriset and common hyena has led to a myth that aardwolves are able to grow into either form of hyena. This metaphor of choosing speed or power is popular among imperial philosophers who hear of these animals, but it is of course rubbish. It's an entirely distinct animal. They and the Veriset are members of a hyena clade specializing in speed over power and lack the bone-crushing adaptations of their more famous hyena clade. Aardwolves feed mostly on insects and occasionally tiny vertebrates like rodents and lizards, avoiding competition with their larger relatives. The common hyena's abundance and success has naturally had a significant impact on local culture. Some Shu paint them as villains, stealing livestock and hunting people. Others as wretched creatures, scavenging and feeding on refuse. Conversely, they are often viewed as mighty and even divine predators. It has become increasingly taught that hyenas more thoroughly process kills than other predators, meaning there's less left to rot and infect local ground and water sources. When hyenas are around, the land is healthier. They tend to avoid human settlements and only occasionally will take livestock, and the general opinion of the Shu is a positive recognition of what hyenas contribute to the area and local ecology. Their more villainous reputation is bolstered by an association of hyenas with witchcraft. Hyenas are a popular familiar, as males especially can become very loyal with minimal enchantment, and there are many shape-shifting lineages who take the form of these man-sized predators. They were also popular subjects of the first children, who used common and spotted hyena in a wide range of homunculi, most famously in the soldier drones that made up their second and third ages. As mentioned, while the prairies are their greatest success story, common hyenas are hardly restricted to this habitat. The assembly generally recognizes 3 subspecies of common hyena: prairie, forest, and mountain. Much of the information dispensed above pertains most to their more abundant prairie population. The forest hyena is decidedly more abundant in the woodlands of southwestern Kier, though they are found in Arvel. They came to Arvel after the land bridge between the 2 major continents was filled in, but as hyenas are surprisingly proficient swimmers, they were able to follow island-hopping game and sometimes migrate. While some scholars distinguish between Nikari and Arvella forest hyena subspecies, there's enough genetic exchange that this is not the majority opinion. There is more genetic distinction between forest and prairie hyenas in Nikar, even only 100 kilometers apart, than there is between Nikar's forest and those of Arvel. Dark fur is common in forest hyenas. This isn't quite melanism, though melanistic forest hyenas are known, but it is much more of a darker brown fur which helps them blend into their forested homes. As Titan Gardens is still quite open terrain, the cursorial habits of hyenas are still quite successful. It must be said that there's a lot of color morph variation, and the yellow and gray forest hyenas are known, but these 2 morphs are much more common on the prairie, while the brown hyenas are far more abundant in the forest populations. Though hyenas have largely outcompeted other cursorial mammal predators of their size in Nikar, Arvel's resident cursorial mammals are still quite successful in the Titan Gardens, the Sulan, or hyena bobcat. This species of Homotherium is found on both continents and with quite a range, much like the forest hyena. However, they are much more abundant and social in Arvel, while their Nikari counterparts are solitary and often considered endangered throughout their wide range. There was once a Homotherium species on the prairie, no doubt competing with Orca scion, but they went extinct with the arrival of hyenas, just as the Borophagine did. In Arvel, it seems they generally prevent the widespread success of the hyena, proof that this is not an entirely one-sided competition. Both are socially complex cursorial predators. Both can cache their kills, the bobcat in trees and the hyena in dens, though perhaps taking their kills into the nearest tree rather than having to run back to a den which might be quite far off helps the serrated-toothed cats keep their niche in Arvel. This continent is also quite a bit cooler, which could also favor Homotherium. The common hyena does seem to do much better in warm climates. That is not to say, however, that they don't have their success when it gets cooler. Mountain hyenas are found throughout the foothills and valleys of the Crescent Peninsulas. They have denser fur and a particularly robust undercoat to help them endure colder temperatures of higher elevation. These buck the trend of their species in often leading solitary lives, though social dynamics are often more complex than first impressions. While they often hunt alone, taking the fission-fusion lifestyle to its most solitary degree, it is usually that at least females live in a communal den of 2 to 5 relatives. Social hunting has been documented in these animals, but likely due to relative scarcity of game, it is more beneficial for them to strike out on their own. They are the largest of common hyena subspecies. Both sexes are around 150 kilos. Their bite is also generally considered stronger, even scaling for size. While they aren't specialized scavengers, they do make good use of this size, imposing mane, and powerful bite when displacing leopards, Thylacoleo, and other predators from a kill. Perhaps because of their less complex social structure, mountain hyenas have a reputation for being a lot less aggressive. Defensive of their young in dens, of course, but males especially can be easily tamed and trained. Females can be docile enough, but their aggressive spikes when bearing and protecting cubs means they have a very hard time breeding in captivity, so no successful domestication has occurred. Males of the mountain hyena are frequently kept as pets and hunting companions, though, a popular pet and feature of heraldry in many noble families. The existence of Nikari mountain hyenas and their adaptation to high elevation has led some to speculate that it may just be a matter of time before the Arvelith population of forest hyenas adapt to the southern Arvel and spread there too. Clearly they have it in them to adapt to such a context. For now, though, it does seem competition with Homotherium is holding them back from southward expansion. If they ever did reach the steppes of southern Arvel, they would find a plethora of horses and caribou. Ideal game. However, not only is there a resident Homotherium species, the greatest challenge would be the cave hyena. These spotted hyenas are also socially complex, intelligent, and aggressive predators. They aren't as fast or enduring in a chase as the common hyena, but they are more sure-footed, important traits for when hunting in uneven terrain. In Picardia, there is another hyena, the Chimeran brown hyena, or Urukidu. This was long assumed to be a color morph of forest hyena, as the darker brown members of the population can look quite similar at a poorly lit glance, but the reality is a very distinct species which came to the island with so many other animals 1.5 million years ago, taking advantage of low sea levels. They are not strict scavengers, but this is a specialization of these solitary animals. Scavenging makes up far more of their diet than common hyenas. However, in southern Picardiant of the spine, say hyenas sometimes cooperate with wolves, serving as a bruiser to bring down anamotu and other large herbivores once the wolves have driven it to exhaustion. Their jaws are astonishingly powerful. They do most of their patrolling under the cover of night. While they are found in the lowlands, they are much more wary of people than the common hyena, and most avoid settlements. Review of skeletal materials has led recent scholars to classify this brown hyena as a species of Pachycrocuta. The Duruk slang, an Arvelith word for particularly large forest hyenas, has also been suggested to possibly be another refuge for Pachycrocuta. which has in turn called into question the possible survival of Pachycrocuta in misidentified western Nikari hyenas north of imperial lands as well, another poorly surveyed region. Hyenas have featured in several Tales of Kaimere stories. Biggest was in Songbird's Lament in my first anthology. Chikami is a young male hyena who recently left his clan and bonds with Yelena, the harpy protagonist of the story. His and Yelena's story will continue in my next anthology. Hyenas also feature in Ballad of Kahai, especially in the early years of his life as antagonists. During the worst of the dry season, hyenas raided an uktan nest. While they killed one of the chicks, it was not absent cost of their own. They also participated in the attack on Druk, Kahai's older brother. While hyenas are not a threat to adult uktan, they can be among the greatest threats in the first few years of the young theropod's life. While hyenas may not be a dominant presence compared to these giant theropods, nor have the size and power of big cats, hyenas are tremendously successful predators. They define many habitats they are found in, often numerically dominating the more imposing predators. While they have a reputation as scavengers, common hyenas are among the most statistically successful predators in both prairie and forest, and it is they who lose more kills to terror birds and young theropods than they manage to displace. The common hyena is the most abundant and widespread predator over 100 pounds in the known world. In such a competitive place, that's nothing to laugh at. Cheers to Rufus for sponsoring this episode. Was supposed to just be on the common hyena, but I got a bit carried away with art and study. There's just so much interesting stuff about hyenas, and as one of the most maligned animals, it was something I didn't want to phone in. While I read a lot of articles in preparation for this episode, I must give a shout out to the Wildlife Wire episode on spotted hyenas. Wildlife Wire is a channel inspired by the Skeleton Crew, wherein a group of paleontologists discuss paleomedia, especially the game Jurassic World Evolution 2. A lot of science communicators have great generalist knowledge, important when covering a wide range of subjects, but the specialized knowledge of scholars focused on the subject is of course going to be a lot more robust and precise. Wildlife Wire is currently on hiatus as one of their members is working as a carnivore ecologist in Zambia, but they have a lot of excellent videos for wildlife enthusiasts who want to hear directly from scholars. As someone whose passion and knowledge is very much generalist, and after all this project and my work as an author requires me often to only have time for surface study, I really appreciate the detail and focus of these wildlife scholars, especially in a subject so dominated by sensationalist media. If you want to know more about hyenas, I definitely recommend the Wildlife Wire episode, which I will link in the description. Thanks again to Rufus, to my Patreon patrons for your support, and thank you so much for watching. Cheers, folks!